Something I've been thinking a lot about lately is how bad Pete Buttigieg is at his job. And while we've covered the specific ins and outs of failures on East Palestine, on the airline crisis, on railroad, and so much more, an important point that I've really come around to is this isn't just about Buttigieg specifically. It's about the system which elevated him, how much it represents our dystopian future. Buttigieg, along with several other Biden appointees, are a view into our affirmative action determined future. One where the identity of the individual is the only metric of which is considered for elevation, and one where job performance is not only secondary, but which barely figures in the place of high importance. I was really struck by this last week at the White House press briefing, where White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre got multiple questions about Secretary Buttigieg and the president's lack of response to East Palestine. In the middle, she had to throw in this. Let's take a listen.
I want to take the opportunity to lay out how diverse the president's cabinet has been, how diverse the president's administration has been. The cabinet is majority people of color for the first time in history. The cabinet is majority female for the first time in history. A majority of White House senior staff identify as female. 40% of White House senior staff identify as part of the racially diverse communities, and a record 7 assistants to the president are openly LGBTQ+. So again, this is something that the president prides himself on, that he actually has taken action to show the diversity of this administration.
That, more than anything, is the ruling ideology of the Biden administration. They are considered people for their most senior appointments. How about answer this question? How many of them went to East Palestine before the day of that briefing? Answer: 0. That's the only answer that should matter. But what we've learned now through the last 2 years is one that matters probably the least, and it's a problem that has been at the heart of the Buttigieg incompetence story. The Secretary of Transportation is gay. Did you know that? How could you not? When the airlines were melting down and they were busting railway unions, warning about the disaster to come on Norfolk Southern, where was Buttigieg? He was on CNN pushing for the gay marriage bill. All of us know he cares more about that than actually doing his job. And apparently, that's all the president expects of him, after doing him a favor and appointing him to the position. This problem pervades all of government right now. Even the person at the altar, Karine Jean-Pierre, she is so terrible at her job that when it matters, matters of national security have to be discussed, they force Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby to come over from the Pentagon and deliver the talking points because they don't want her to screw up anything important when it comes to Ukraine. He had never had to do that when Jen Psaki was the press secretary. I will also tell you this from my years as a White House correspondent. The only time the press secretary ever relinquishes the White House podium is to a senior government policy official who is supposed to answer detailed questions about policy. Never to a more junior press secretary. The White House press secretary is supposed to be the premier U.S. government spokesperson. But they can't fire her, even though anyone with eyes knows she's terrible. Because all Biden and apparently the media talk about is how she's the first black gay woman to be the press secretary. That's great, but performance apparently doesn't matter. Or take our own vice president, Kamala Harris. Literally all of us know that she was not picked because of her ability to do the job. She was the worst performing candidate in the 2020 Democratic primary, often losing to people like Andrew Yang in her own home state polls. She was picked because she checked diversity box. Apparently, doesn't matter that she holds one of the lowest approval ratings for a vice president in modern American history, despite having 0 responsibility. Why am I harping on this? Because affirmative action is quickly becoming the religion of the elite in this country. We are only likely to have more Secretary Buttigieg's, Vice President Harris's, and Press Secretary Jean-Pierre's as the years go on. In his first months in office, Biden signed an executive order on, quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion, accessibility in the federal workforce. The order, quote, establishes it is the policy of the administration to cultivate a workforce that draws from the full diversity of the nation. So how does it do that? Well, it creates an affirmative action regime that we have at major corporations and creates them in every department of government, including effective hiring quotas throughout the entire federal government. Just days ago, the Biden administration released the first diversity, equity, and inclusion report from the federal government, with an increase in, quote, representation for women and some communities of color. The report effectively shows that racial hiring quotas and identity-based ones like sexual orientation are the new signifiers of status for government employment. Worse, a new director of the Office of Personnel Management says that the goal of the Biden administration is to have the federal government set affirmative action standards for every employer in the nation. Why is this bad? The government is already the largest employer in the whole country. They are trying to spread this poison to the HR department of every large, mid, and small corporation in the world. The consequences of ditching merit almost entirely cannot be overstated. Already, top law schools, medical schools in the country are a coordinated scheme to de-emphasize objective merit criteria like GPA, LSAT, MCAT, and other test scores to preserve a racial admissions regime. They are literally going to rig the system, burn hundreds of years of academic credibility that they have built up, just to ensure their idealized racial makeup of their student body. And that, by definition, determines the higher elite of this country. As I have asked in previous monologues, can you actually have confidence that your doctor knows what the hell they are doing in 10 years, or that your lawyer who you need to sue said doctor knows what they're doing either? Or how about your president, or your secretary of transportation, or your boss, or the list goes on forever. I like to think at a certain point, a system this weak will fail. Maybe that's true. But how many people are going to miss out on opportunities or suffer under bad leadership until the fix actually comes? Only time will tell. Curious what your take on this, Ryan. I know Crystal.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.